My name is Tom Ermolovich. I work here at Northeastern. I'm also a Northeastern graduate, and I tell you, when I was here, the building like this did not exist. This is absolutely magnificent. I think it would be a real rush to teach here, teach in a room like this every evening. So let's see. I'm not really an academic per se. My education is a BSCE from Northeastern and an MBA from Bentley College. For 35 years, I worked in industry. The last 15 years, 5 times VP of engineering and startups, and in 2002 I started a company. And then the last 4 years I sort of transitioned, sort of saying I didn't really want to start another company. Frankly, I'm not up for doing all the work, to be brutally honest. When you do a startup, it's something that you do from early in the morning to late at night. And if you're really going to do a good job as VP of engineering, you're going to have dinner with your team every night. And so after a while, it gets to be old hat. So last 4 years, I had ever-increasing responsibilities here at Northeastern. And now you hear a little bit here. I work in the School of Technological Entrepreneurship and the College of Professional Studies. And what we're doing is I work in what we call the experiential program, where I work with coaching teams of students that are trying to take real intellectual property here at Northeastern and try to make that into a real live company. So I want to talk a little bit from my perspective around history of global technology entrepreneurship. And I hate PowerPoint because now you're all looking at the slide and you're not looking at me. But anyway, so first of all, let's have a little audience participation here. So how many people here were born in the US? Okay. Doesn't count if you were born in New York, Tony. How many people were born outside the US? Okay, it's pretty cool. So I want to tell you a little bit about a time in engineering and entrepreneurship where you folks outside the US didn't matter. Can you believe that? In the 70s, 60s and 70s, everything was very US focused. We designed the products here, we manufactured the products here, and we just sent them overseas. And that's how it was. And here I was, a young, arrogant, I don't think I was an engineering manager then, young, arrogant project leader, and said, fine. They just have to learn to read English. This is what the product is. And that's where we were, American arrogance, and we're the capital of the world. The rest of you guys, you don't matter. Then after a while, we started thinking about saying, geez, it kind of makes sense, maybe for, first thing was we said maybe it makes sense to build products offshore, maybe a little bit to save some money. And I was at Digital Equipment, and we did some manufacturing in Puerto Rico. And then this thing came along called the Common Market. And we had engineering in Ireland. And then we said, when more cost reductions, we did engineering, we did manufacturing in Taiwan and Hong Kong. Pretty cool. So now we're manufacturing. You're starting to see the seeds of sort of like a global kind of world of engineering. But now what happens is we have manufacturing. How do we support the plant? You support the plant with manufacturing engineering. So it's made more sense to put the manufacturing in the plant. But most of the entrepreneurship and cool job, technical jobs at that time was still in the United States. So people that wanted to stay in Taiwan, or the team that I had in Hong Kong, these guys were tremendously qualified, much more qualified than the people in the United States. So all of a sudden, these teams emerged, and they first said, okay, we'll let you support the plant. And these are guys with master's degrees, the guys that I had in Hong Kong. And my whole team in Ireland, there was 15 people with PhDs. But then, so what do you think? They were pretty hungry to start doing more and more. So they moved up from cost reductions. Then we started letting them, they moved from support to cost reductions. And all of a sudden, we discovered we had a really pretty talented team. And so we said, we'd let you guys do enhancements. And all of a sudden, now the world is starting to become a lot more global, and the engineering is getting closer to the customer. And now, if you then eventually we let them develop new products and let them develop new products into stable markets. And now, if you look at sort of where are we today with, if you were to start a company, if you were to go over to Matrix Partners over in Waltham, you can start a company. Matrix has an office in China. So now, if you're going to start a company, it's another reason why I wanted to matriculate to come to the university, because what I like to do with software engineering is a good chance that I'd be starting a company in China. So now we've actually come full circle from saying, geez, the only thing that matters is the US. And now all of a sudden, now we want to have entrepreneurship, and we don't want to do the entrepreneurship in the US. We want to do the entrepreneurship right close to the customer, right to where the market is. And that transition probably has taken maybe 30 some odd years. So now we end saying now we have a need to have entrepreneurs in countries outside the US. Now let's just talk about like the education model and see how that sort of matches the need for, now we know we need entrepreneurs outside the US. So here is probably, for most of my career, probably like from say like the late 60s into the mid 90s, this is sort of the classic model how entrepreneurs got educated throughout the world. In their local country, I didn't say foreign, I thought that would be insulting for this crowd, but anyway, in their local country, people would go to high school, university, sometimes maybe they go right from high school, and then they come to the United States. They come to the United States and they go to US university. Sometimes people would go like from local, maybe do the high school over here in the United States and go to US university. But what happens? What was happening for like 20, 30 years? They don't go home, right? That's what happened. People stay here. It was great for the US. Brain drain from India. That was great. The best and the brightest came here to Boston, and you can list so many great companies that were built with Indian entrepreneurs. And it was really great. It was really great. The people here are really qualified. But how was it for India, right, Santosh? It wasn't great for India, right? Not so great. And then, so great for the US. And then what happens now is the world becomes more global. As I told you, there's a need to have entrepreneurs. In India, the economy starts to improve in different areas. Guess what? People have families. People want to go back home. So what happened was you see here now that you go through a model, people probably, what I would say, probably in like the late 90s or whatever, especially because I work with a huge amount of Indian engineers. People start to want to go back home. And their first opportunity probably was to go back and work for like Indian outsourcing companies and stuff like that. And people say, hey, I have a family and stuff like that. I'm raising my kids. I want to raise my kids back in India. But those jobs quickly morphed into saying is now they can start companies in India. And then you see things change now. Then you look at our students. You can look at students now also come to the US. So now think about this before. We had like in the model we said that we wanted to do, we had all the entrepreneurship done in the US. Now we want to make it closer to the country. But now we still have somewhat of a backwards model that you have people here, entrepreneurs have to come to the US to get the education. Doesn't kind of make sense, don't you think? Something like the education maybe should be done in the local country. It doesn't kind of make sense that everybody has to come here to the US. And also, what are the issues? Number one issue with coming to the US nowadays? Visa problems. Right, and we have one student from India, and she's still having a hard time adapting to the food, and she got here in September. So there's a whole bunch of issues that's saying this isn't necessarily the best model, and this isn't necessarily the most scalable model.